Mr. President should intervene. But then again, we saw the earlier report that the Osun State Caucus in the 10th House of Representatives, led by Honorable Bamidele Salam, is also calling on Mr. President to intervene. Now, let's take the views of our next guest, who is a media expert and a former editor with the Nigerian Tribune, Mr. Sanya Adejokun, who joins the conversation this morning. Good morning to you, Mr. Adejokun. Can you hear us, sir? Mr. Adejokun, kindly check that you have not muted yourself at your end. Beautiful.
Yeah, how is it now? Good morning.
Morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, we've elaborately dwelt on the issues that informed this conversation stemming from Osun State, but it's none on the angle of a lot of persons tilting towards Mr. President to solve the solution. The Osun caucus in the 10th National Assembly, particularly from the Green Chambers led by Honorable Bamidele Salam, has also held a press conference here in Abuja, calling on Mr. President in what he described as a clear ruling from the appeal court against their reinstatement, and the fact that his party in this case is aggrieved following the incidents that has also seen a loss of lives. Please, let's get your thoughts on this developing story.
Well, naturally, I would describe it as unfortunate. But the point of the matter is, what do we do? We are in a democracy. And then I just heard you now saying rightly that we shouldn't call on the president to intervene at every situation. But there must be somebody who is in charge. Okay, look at the case of Osun that we're talking of. The court ruled that the local government administrators that were sacked illegally and that they should return. Now, who is going to enforce that? If the president comes in and say, DSS or police or military, go and enforce it, it's going to be regarded as political, and then it will be looked at as if because it is APC that is in charge, that's why he's doing it. Now, if he doesn't say anything, who will enforce court judgment? Because that's something that I think we should look at in this country. If a court decides, if a court rules, if a court they makes its judgment, and then nobody, maybe the state, maybe the governor, maybe the president, maybe the minister, maybe the police commissioner, maybe the IG of police, maybe the chief of army staff, or anybody decides that he's not going to respect that court ruling, what happens next? Who is going to police the policeman? And that's something that I have looked at over the year, and it has been happening. It is if a political office holder, for instance, decides that he's not going to respect the court order, what happens? Who enforces judgment? So at times we deliberately cause chaos. If I go to court now and the court gives me judgment, who is going to enforce it? Now, this local government chairman, the Court of Appeal says they were wrongly terminated, and then nobody was ready to enforce it. And then they went ahead and took offices on their own. Who is guilty? Are we going to say that those parties that correctly got judgment from the court are guilty? Or are we going to say that they should wait forever until the government decides that I really don't know. It's confusing, and it's something that we should look at as a nation. Because we are in a democracy, it does not mean that we should be in a state of lawlessness. I disagree with that.
Well,
so
certainly not being in a state of lawlessness, but don't you think that maybe such situations where perhaps the executive governor of a state or maybe a commissioner of police or whoever it is, a high-ranking member of either the political class or ruling class or whatever, decides to disobey a court ruling or disobey the rule of law? Don't you think that maybe the Attorney General of the nation could have come into the picture to enforce the law rather than calling on the Commander-in-Chief to all the way from the top to address certain issues as little as local government issues in certain states?
First of all, the local government is not a little issue. Yeah, that's the basic government that we have. That's the government that most Nigerians see. They see their local government chairman, they see their councillors.
At the ground.
Who sees the president? Yeah, the president sits in Abuja. Most of the time, he travels abroad, he does his things in Abuja and so on and so forth. People see him on TV. The ministers likewise. Maybe once in a while when they say they are going to inspect or something, and they look at the governors. Who sees the governor? Is the local government chairman and the councillors that people are able to relate to one-on-one. They should be able to go to their houses, they relate with them, they tell them their problems, they tell them their aspirations and so on. So the issue of local government is not a small matter in a democracy such as ours. That is one. Then the other one is, yes, the Attorney General of the Federation is actually the only minister that is recognized by the Constitution. And so he should be able to say something. But again, I don't know why he has been quiet so far. He has been quiet on some of these issues. And maybe it's also because he doesn't want to take responsibility. He doesn't want people to say that he's supporting his political party. And maybe that's what is happening. But there is a need for decisive actions. There is a time to look and a time to take actions. Now, look at this Osun case. People are already dead. People came out brazenly. They came out on the expressway. They came out everywhere, shooting and killing and maiming and everything. Not only in Ikire and in other parts of that state too. So now that people have died, I expected that by this morning we should have had something either from the president directly, which is not wrong, or from the attorney general, who should come and say, okay, this is the position of the law. This is what the court has said. This is what the government is deciding. Silence is not golden at this particular moment. I think we should hear something from the federal government.
Now, whilst we wait to hear something from the federal government, a lot of persons have faulted the developments as it concerns the activities of law enforcement in Osun State following an earlier alarm as raised by the governor, comparing it to what happened in the Lagos State Assembly, where men of the Department of State Services were hurriedly dispatched on perceptions that there might be a forceful invasion by the ousted Speaker Obasa. Do you think that the approach in terms of preventive mechanisms put in place by law enforcement could have been different to curb this loss of lives? Is it a case of negligence? Is it a case of a breakdown in a working relationship between the governor and the commissioner of police? Or what, in your opinion, could have been done better to have averted this issue?
In Osun or in Lagos?
In Osun. I cited the Lagos as reference. People say DSS was hurriedly dispatched, whilst in Osun there was not much of a similar hurried body language by security agencies to avert this crisis.
You see, the issue that we have in Nigeria has continued to resurface over the years. Who is in charge of security in the state? Is it the governor? Is it the president? Is it the commissioner of police? Is it the IG? In a situation where the governor has good rapport with the commissioner of police, then things may seem to go smoothly. But the most important thing for us as Nigerians is let the rule of law prevail. In Osun State, for instance, I see a very dicey situation. The governor is in the PDP. The other people, the local government administrators that were sacked were returning to office yesterday, were in the opposing party, which is APC. I really do not see how the governor will, because of the kind of politics that we play in Nigeria, the governor will not in any way want to see those people return, because he sacked them in the first place as soon as he got to office. And that thing has become a recurring testimony. Remember, that exactly happened in other states too, when Governor Seyi Makinde took over office in 2019 or so. Yeah. When he took office in 2019 and decided to summarily dismiss the local government chairman and the councillors. Those ones proceeded to court. They defeated the governor in court. They with award will cost. The governor said he was not going to pay. He went again to the appeal court and blah blah blah. Eventually, the governor was forced to pay, even though he was standing at the beginning that he wasn't going to pay. But he paid because he was. I think the court now. Those guys now went to court to forfeit the property of the government, and then they attached the state government's account to it. So he was forced to pay. The same thing happened in Osun. The same thing happened in Edo. If you remember, as soon as the current governor took office, he also sacked the local government administration that he met there. He sacked the councillors, sacked the governor, the chairman. Same thing that we are talking about in Osun State too. I think this is something that people should get used to. That you are in office does not mean that you are the governor, does not mean that you are the captain of local governments. No, people elected local government chairmen and councillors. Although we know that even that process of election is always flawed, because if it's PDP that is in charge in a state, the PDP will win every local government seat, will win every councillorship seat. Likewise, if it is APC governor that is in charge, the APC will win everything from local government, from chairmen to councillors. If it's a Labour Party, it will be the same. If it's ABGA, it will be the same. So that's something that we should look at. But talking particularly about this case of Osun, I do not see Governor Adeleke wanting to obey the court order, except there's a force that is above him that will compel him to obey that court order. Because what we are hearing now, so it's really difficult. How do we enforce laws? How do we enforce court judgments where where politicians believe that they are above the law? And in Nigeria, politicians actually believe that they are above the law. They can do, they want to undo. You remember that National Assembly member who said that he was going to make a taxi driver disappear without any cause, without any traces. So once people assume office in Nigeria, they think that they have become laws unto themselves, and there has to be something that will be done to checkmate these issues. Otherwise, there will be chaos. There will always be chaos. There will always be breakdown of law.
All right, yeah. Mr. Sanya, in ensuring that these issues are checkmated across states, and also with the issue of the local government autonomy granted to local government councils in the state and the level of influence the state governors have on them, do you still think that in a situation where the ruling political party sort of orchestrates its members who are vying for local government chairmanship seats to sweep through all the local government councils at the end of the day, do you still think that the local government autonomy, financial and administrative autonomy, would have any reasonable effect across states in the nation? Or are we just deceiving ourselves?
I think it could. If we are able to eventually enforce the financial autonomy of local governments, it may, but then it will still be the case of the normal everyday election that we have in Nigeria. The presidential election, the state government's election, the legislative houses election, whether National Assembly, whether State Assembly, we know that they have always been flawed. And so even local government election will not be different. How will they be different? They will also be flawed. I really don't know how we are going to tackle it. I don't pretend to know how we are going to tackle it, but I know that somehow, if we do not collectively come together and decide that enough is enough, then what's the essence of democracy? Right now, many people do not believe that we are practicing democracy. We are still practicing civilian rule, because anything goes. People just come, they take office. The way the NURTW people take offices in those days when we were still in the South. One day, a faction will just come up with cutlasses, with guns, with cudgels, with everything, and then go to the garage and beat every other person to stupor, and they take over. That's exactly what is also happening in the political scene. It's just that this time around, they mix that with other things, like falsifying figures, like buying voters, like all those other nonsense that people do in elections. So I really think that local government election, financial autonomy will be something. It will be something because by the time the local government chairmen themselves are empowered, once they have the money to be able to do what they are supposed to do, then the grip, the vice grip that state governors have on them will reduce, and people will begin to benefit. They can begin to do rural roads, and then when they are doing that, even the citizens themselves, people who live in the rural areas themselves, will now have the impetus to come out and vote. And when they vote, then the next time, when they benefit, the next time there is election, more people will come out. And if there is going to be imposition, some people may resist. There's something that happened in a particular local government, no, in particular senatorial district in a state, I think it's in Oyo State, in Ogbomoso area, for instance, when Governor Seyi Makinde said that his local government chairman will not participate in this new dispensation. And the chairman also said yes, because the federal government decides that there is going to be financial autonomy, that they will be withdrawing from Algon. And then people from Ogbomoso, the citizens there, the big people, they wrote to their chairman and said, we are the ones who elected you, and we want you to continue in Algon. We want to benefit from this new judgment of the Supreme Court for local government autonomy. So they want their chairman because they believe that if there's autonomy, if there's financial autonomy, they are going to benefit. It's not that a governor will wake up one day and say all local government in the state, 3 local governments and the other ones that they created, must buy security doors, which is useless. You go to Oyo State now, visit any local government in Oyo State now, and you will see security doors kept somewhere because they were forced to buy security doors that were useless. The money was deducted from their accounts at source, and then they were forced to buy those security doors. Many of those local governments, what are they securing, by the way? Which offices? Go to those offices, they are dilapidated. So where will you put security doors when even the houses are dilapidated and people can't climb the walls, roofs are falling, the walls are falling, and then you say you force them to buy security doors? No, I'm just citing Oyo as an instance.
Yeah.
I know that this is what is happening in every state of this federation.
Okay.
Yeah, state governments have turned local government funds into they turned it into a piggy banks. They use it for what they want to do. They use it. They entertain with it. They do whatever and then give monthly peanuts to local government chairman who dare not say anything. You remember many years ago in Ekiti State when I think Mr. Fayoshe was still governor in his first term. There was a particular local government chairman, whether Taye Kehinde or something, I can't remember his name, who came out and was antagonizing the governor. Well, we all know what happened to him in the end. I'm not saying that it is the governor that was responsible. It wasn't long after that altercation that the man met with something terrible. So the thing is, the state governors are too powerful in this country. They go beyond their bounds. They have turned themselves into our lords. We cannot say anything. They control the finances. They control the party. They control and they spend anyhow.
Well, Mr. Sanya, quite a very fine place to leave the conversation there. But it has been a very educative session with you, and we must appreciate you. Hoping to have you again next time, perhaps in the studio with us to discuss more political issues in the news.
All right, we'll look forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, as we draw this current affairs segment to a close, it's with deepest sympathy that we break the news